America must win this war. Therefore, I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure. I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone.
I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it, and the glow from that fire can truly light the world. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
We shall never surrender.
Welcome back to the War Kitchen's Christmas special. Today we're taking a look at one of the most well-known holiday favorites, the pumpkin pie. The first recorded use of a pumpkin-based dessert goes way back to the Plymouth settlers of the New World back in the mid-1600s. These early Americans would hollow out pumpkins and fill them with milk, honey, and spices, which were then baked over the coals of a fire. By the late 1600s, English bakers had created a pumpkin pie, which is an Old English term for pumpkin, itself derived from the French word for melon. It consisted of pumpkin with cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves. It was basically just a pie filling or a pudding, sometimes with apples, raisins, and currants added for variation. It wasn't until the late 1700s when an American cook placed the pumpkin pie into an actual pie crust. Thus, the pumpkin pie was born and very much resembles what we enjoy today. In our modern hardship variant of this Christmas classic, we will use canned pumpkin, which you can purchase at your local supermarket. In today's world, canned pumpkin is available all year round in most grocery stores, but our modern logistical issues mean that many products, such as pie fillings, suffer from seasonal shortages. So it's best to pick up a few cans of pumpkin when the demand isn't so high. If you are interested, you can replace the canned pumpkin with a real pie pumpkin, if they are available in your area. Pie pumpkins are more of a fashion statement or a holiday decoration these days, and as such have become quite scarce in some areas. Despite what many social media influencers will tell you, you can't really eat just any kind of pumpkin. Technically you could, but if you go to your neighborhood pumpkin patch and pick out a random jack-o'-lantern style pumpkin to use for a pie, you're going to find that it tastes pretty bad. What you need is specifically what is called a pie pumpkin, which is designed to be the right size and sweetness to make a pie. Again, these types of pumpkins are kind of hard to find these days. For us, we don't have any for sale anywhere near us this year due to localized shortages. But if you are lucky enough to find one, they are pretty easy to prepare. Simply slice in half, remove the seeds, and bake in your oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit until tender. Remove the pulp from the inside and mash it up or puree it to achieve the same effect as canned pumpkin. So once you've decided what kind of pumpkin you want to use, let's get started with the pie crust. First, you will want to preheat your oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit or 218 degrees Celsius. Next, we will prepare the pie crust by combining flour, butter, and salt in a large bowl. Just as a side note, you will have wanted to take the butter out of the fridge long before you actually begin this recipe so that it has time to reach room temperature. Add the water and the vinegar slowly and mix until you get a ball of dough. Divide the dough into 2 balls and wrap them each in plastic wrap, then place them in the refrigerator to chill out for a bit. We will only be using 1 dough ball for this recipe because pumpkin pie doesn't normally have a crust on the top, so you'll have an extra crust on hand for baking another pie if you want. While the dough is getting cold, you can prepare your filling ingredients. Combine all of the filling ingredients, your pumpkin, sugar, eggs, and spices in a large bowl and mix thoroughly. A helpful cooking tip is to always try to combine your dry ingredients first and then add in your wet ingredients slowly, or vice versa. By slowly combining your wet and dry ingredients together, you can ensure that you don't form any clumps. And one of our main wet ingredients today is a can of evaporated milk. Keeping with the theme, cans of evaporated milk can be stored for much longer than fresh milk, and therefore are a good thing to keep on hand in case of shortages, high prices, or even some kind of civil disturbance that keeps you from getting to the grocery store. Evaporated milk is also creamier because it's is usually condensed down to 50% of its original volume, so this creaminess works much better than just normal milk in the recipe anyway. So once you get everything all mixed up nicely, you can roll out the crust. After the dough has been chilling for a while, you can remove it from the fridge and place it onto a floured surface and roll it into a round shape approximately 1/8 of an inch in thickness. You can just use your hands if you want, but a rolling pin is a great investment if you plan on making your pie crust from scratch, which you probably will do once you realize how easy this is. Once you've got it all rolled out, place your pie crust in an oven-safe baking dish and pinch the sides all around to create a pleasant-looking pie edge. You can be as fancy as you like with this. Sometimes a fork helps to get the edges just right, but you can also just use your fingers. Next, we need to decide if we want to pre-cook the crust before adding the filling. This is called blind baking the crust. Most store-bought pie crusts are so thin and uniform that there is no need to pre-bake them, but homemade pie crusts are a different story. This is actually a bit of a debate within the baking world. Some people say that blind baking prevents the pie from becoming soggy in the middle and on the bottom. Others will say that if you do this, you will end up with a burned outer crust when you go to bake the finished pie. Others will say that blind baking the crust is necessary for some kinds of pies, but not for others, so the choice is up to you. We here prefer to split the difference, setting the oven to 425 degrees, and while it's preheating, throw the pie crust in for about 10 minutes at the most. If the crust starts to brown, you've gone too far. This way we're cooking the crust a little bit, ensuring that the final crust won't be soggy, and at the same time we're making sure that it isn't going to burn later, all the while being as efficient as possible and not letting the heat go to waste while the oven is preheating. Once your crust is ready, using whatever method you choose, we're now ready for filling. Scoop the filling ingredients into the pie crust and place on a cookie sheet or flat pan. Pies are pretty delicate, so placing your baking dish on the baking pan or a cookie sheet will allow you to easily remove the pie when cooked. Place the pie into the oven and bake at 425 degrees Fahrenheit or about 220 degrees Celsius for 15 minutes. Then reduce the oven temperature to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 120 degrees Celsius and continue baking for another 40 to 50 minutes. Always test the pie with a toothpick by placing it in the center of the pie filling. If the toothpick comes out clean, then your pie is done. Make sure to let it cool to room temperature if you're planning on placing it in the refrigerator to store for later, but there you have it, the Pickwick Pumpkin Pie, a favorite dessert for the holiday season that can easily be prepared even in times of hardship.